Yeah, so we have a recent article here about this little Twitter spat that happened between Elon Musk and Senator Elizabeth Warren. And this type of stuff is gonna, like, somebody's gonna say something snarky, somebody's gonna say something snarky back. These type of exchanges happen all the time, and I think it'd be kind of boring to try to cover these types of article or try to cover every type of like little skirmish on Twitter. Um, the only reason why I'm looking into this, it's I feel like, first of all, we live in a strange system that maybe hopefully people in the future we're going to find this very strange and bizarre, as far as like the whole democracy thing. I mean, maybe in the future, ideally, you wouldn't you could live in a system where you would know, you would, first of all, a choose what type of law, on top of what type of rules and regulations you live under, and when you choose these regulations, they wouldn't change with the average whim of people. I mean, it's kind of crazy. You'd think that like an accomplished person like Elon Musk, or like if you're an Elon Musk living in the future society and you contribute so much, you make so much stuff, you invent stuff, that people would have a job demagoguing against you. I mean, kind of strange. It'd seem like you'd be a celebrated figure. You're like, holy shit, we're so proud of having this guy in our colony, or in our Martian colony, or like Venus colony, or whatever. Um, and how, yeah, just how strange it is that you don't this democratic system. I mean, you really, I mean, there is no limit, basically. I mean, the voters can vote for whatever they want, and there isn't much in the way of stopping them. If the voters want to confiscate everything from you, throw you in jail, or any kind of crazy, bizarre system, bizarre laws or whatever, they can literally do it. Now, yes, technically they have a constitution, they have some guardrails in place, but all that stuff can be done away with. In past histories, we're done away with. There's really, like, if the general public wants to do something to you, they will. Which is, I mean, I think there should be. I don't know. There is no system right now that's been invented, that's been tried, that's better than, that solves this problem. But in the future, I think a future political system definitely should take care of that. And I think it's because by competition. It's like it's almost, imagine like you're like, you can pick a government, like you pick a cell phone service. You're like, oh, I like T-Mobile, I like Verizon. Well, I get these type of benefits living in the T-Mobile city or whatever, under T-Mobile government, and or here's the Verizon, and they're always competing, and they all try to lower your taxes, and like lower your taxes and give you more and more benefits, more bang for your buck. And it would be so bizarre to, like, let's say you're like in real life here, you're a T-Mobile customer, and the president of T-Mobile, hey, you see this asshole? This asshole got a plan from 10 years ago, and he's grandfathered in. He's only paying $39.99, where these other people are paying $100 a month. And look how rich he is. We need to increase his fees. And you're like, what the fuck? That just sounds so. I'm just a customer. You know what I mean? Like, we agreed to this thing. It's another example I like to say is, let's say you go on a cruise ship, and you're just, hey, technically in open seas and high water or whatever, you are, the captain is your government. He's in charge of you. He can, like, legally tell you what to do or whatever. But nobody's doing research on the captain and trying to find out what his political views are, because it doesn't matter. You have a contract. You're going from point A to point B. Here are your accommodations. Here's where you'll be sleeping. Here's the code of conduct where you can't do to other patrons or whatever, how you can interact with them. And and then this is a voluntary system. Like, if you didn't like it, you don't have to get on this cruise ship. And this is, I think, so much more conducive to actually people getting along together, and to a flourishing society. Elizabeth Warren told Elon Musk to actually pay taxes and stop freeloading off everyone else. I mean, this type of Elizabeth Warren is pretty awful, but it's to think that Elon Musk is like a number one freeloader. It's the opposite. It's like the state is the number one freeloader of people's productivity, but it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, even I'm sure deep down in her head, or at least I hope. I mean, they have some type of consciousness. Even her like supporters, just like, well, I don't know. Is that possible? Like, I'm sure he sells a shit ton of Teslas, and he has a shit ton of people working for him. I'm sure they pay at least some kind of payroll taxes, and people buy Teslas. They pay a lot of sales. I mean, this can't be right. He must be, must be extracting trillions of dollars from his operation anyway, right? Musk responds that he'll pay more in taxes this year than any other American in history. Well, especially with today's inflated ass dollars. Tesla CEO and world's richest person, Elon Musk, who has estimated net worth of $251 billion, was denounced yesterday by Elizabeth Warren, has long been showily pursuit of getting millionaires and billionaires to pay their quote-unquote fair share. And too bad, that's another thing. They just never say what their fair share is. It's 50%, 60%, 70%. Because once they say it and then somebody actually pays that, it's going to be... How else are they going to, extract more money from people? If there's a whole bunch of people, billionaires or whatever, already paying 70% of their income. Time just named Elon Musk Person of the Year. So Warren tweeted, "Let's change the rigged tax code so the Person of the Year will actually pay taxes and stop freeloading off everyone else." Musk tried a few different responses for size, including, "You remind me when I was a kid and my friend's angry mom would just randomly yell at everyone for no reason. Please don't call the manager on me, sir and Karen. Blah, 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 blah. And if you would open your eyes for 2 seconds, you would realize I would pay more in taxes than any American in history this year." Musk's best response would counter the claim that he won't pay any taxes this year, a common talking point from those who don't acknowledge that many ultra-rich founder CEOs accrue such high net worth not via traditional salaries alone, but via a mix of stock options, capital gains, interest, dividends, and business income. Though Musk did not pay federal income taxes back in 2018 because it took out loans against Tesla shares. That's another thing. Yeah, so I guess if you're ultra rich and you start a company, I mean, give the devil his due. People starting companies, most likely, chances are you'll end up bankrupt and the company will fail. But in the small, tiny percentage, tiny little chance that your company does succeed and it's worth millions of dollars, well, in that case, you don't have to sell shares. You don't have to sell the company. You can borrow. You can take out a low interest rate loan and borrow against it. So technically, you don't pay any taxes. And I mean, how do I feel about that? I'm not. I mean, ideally, you would have everybody paying the same amount, like the same percentage, just so we can. If everybody has the same voting power, that's because otherwise, any other way, you have a conflict of interest. The Democrats are always love to pointing out conflicts of interest. Well, that's one of the biggest conflicts of interest I've ever seen. If somebody doesn't pay any taxes, and other person's breaking their back, paying a shit ton of taxes, well, obviously you would vote for. I mean, I wouldn't, but I could see people's logical rationale is like, well, let's increase the taxes. He's that rich person. I'll never become that rich. Screw him. And that's how it works. But then look here, he will be on the hook to pay an extreme amount this year, potentially between 9 and 10 billion, if he exercises soon to expire stock options. Though outlets like ProPublica engage in a fair bit of finger wagging on the matter, many of the ways ultra-rich people avoid paying extremely high tax bills are perfectly legal. And many uber-wealthy people armed with financial advisors do all the kinds of things that quote-unquote working rich and super upper middle class people don't. They use low-interest loans backed by their portfolios to borrow money to live on. Well, also too, like if you own real estate, that's the goal. I mean, apparently real estate investors don't pay any taxes at all. And the famous saying goes, if you invest in real estate and you pay taxes, you're doing something wrong. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a messed up system. It's we're balkanized, and some people are super rich. They can get away with not paying many taxes. The worst people are the people that are like doctors and lawyers, but they draw like a salary. You're like the worst thing is a high earner that actually gets a salary. I know some well-paid IT people that maybe make 300K but pay like 150 in taxes. So that's the worst case scenario as far as taxes. And I mean and then the other half of Americans don't pay any income taxes. They pay other stuff like federal sales tax and stuff. I mean, which is really really fucked up and perverse. It's like if you spent 10, 15 years becoming a doctor and you're really good at what you do, well, god damn it, we want you to work as much as possible. And anybody that knows economics 101, the more you tax something, the less people do. So, I mean, yes, these people are workaholics, but potentially they could be working even harder, or but at a certain the more the more hours you work, the more you make, the higher in the higher tax bracket you get. That really discourages certain people. I'm sure countless amount of real estate deals or just business deals in general could have been done, but when you pencil in these taxes, that economic activity just never happened. While Warren was hectoring Musk for failing to actually pay taxes, 61% of Americans, roughly 100 million households, actually, for real, didn't pay federal income taxes last year. Now, last year was a bit anomalous due to high unemployment and the stimulus checks, but the number typically hovers around 40 and 47%, comprised by people who make low incomes, take advantage of child-related tax credits, or are elderly. I don't understand the child tax credits anyway. It's like, yeah, that's great that you choose to have children, but why? I mean, that's the thing that I hate too. It's like the tax code incentivizes people to do this and de-incentivizes to do that, but the government should be our goddamn a servant, just a servant to us. Like, hey, build this road, build this power plant over here, or coordinate the sewage grid. It shouldn't. They're not. They shouldn't be central planners trying to mold society how they want to shape up, because that always fails. Just unethical too, in my estimations. The Tax Foundation noted that in 2018, the top 25% of taxpayers paid 87% of federal income taxes. Top 1% pony up roughly 40% of total federal income taxes. Warren's spending priorities are largely bankrolled by the richest people in America. To the extent they're bankrolled at all, which is completely true. I mean, the debt is astronomical, and not the $30 billion that's reported. It's the off-the-books debt. It's the unfunded liabilities that are in the $100 trillion, which is, I think, we're actually going to see this play out, because to fight all this inflation we got going on these days, you have to start raising interest rates, but they just can't do it. The government has too much debt, so I think they're going to throw the dollar under the bus. People who own real estate and assets will get richer, while the poor people are going to get, poor people who are older people on fixed income, or poor people that actually have, like a job, definitely going to see a much diminishment in their purchasing power. So that's unfortunate. But unfortunately, not too many people understand economics, so the politicians can get away with it, as opposed to being added to the exorbitant national debt. Part of her critique is fair. Musk's use of government subsidies does constitute freeloading of American taxpayers, although in the most recent interview that I've seen, he said just cut all the subsidies. He doesn't cut all the fossil fuel subsidies, cut all the green energy subsidies, which I definitely do agree with. The government is inherently not a good steward of capital, Musk told Time for its Person of the Year profile. Regrettably, Musk will likely be forking over a handsome sum this year to the very people he has correctly identified as people unlikely to spend it well. Well, that's true. I mean, I've definitely see the charts where the more government spends of the GDP, the slower the economy goes, and that just makes sense. I mean, who's going to spend the money better? Somebody who actually has an interest in making a profit and then making sure they get the principal and grow their money, or where hey, it's free cash. I'm going to shower it on my political allies. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Let's check out the comments here. Progressives project their own inequities on others. That's how they cope. This is a good one. The taxpayers are footed the bill for her living her entire life, adult life. They created this. This is a good one. They created the system. It's being manipulated. It's their fault. Yeah, at the end of the day, that's true. I mean, like the tax code is so crazy, so many pages. Why don't they just Why don't they just streamline it? Oh, and then the most ironic thing, the funniest part about it. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. It's the Democrat part of like Trump's tax cuts. He capped the state and local tax deduction, and that's really hurting. Basically, he raised taxes on people living in blue states, on their super wealthy. Technically, people who pay 10K or more, and if you pay $10,000 more than in local taxes, I mean, before you could deduct all of it from your federal taxes, but now he capped it. And now the good Democrats are trying to quietly, without rocking too many, trying not to let it be known or whatever, trying to on the DL, but it's really hurting blue states. A lot of rich people are moving out of blue states, so they're trying to get their tax breaks back in there, which is hilarious in itself.